Hey crew, it's Ben, and I'm back with another Bible study. Today we are going to be getting back into the book of Kings, but before we do, if you are new here, if you are unfamiliar with what is going on, I hold unconventional beliefs. I am holding an unconventional Bible study, and I suggest you start in Genesis. For everyone else, let's dig into the text. We're going to pick up in 1 Kings 13 because we left off in 1 Kings 12. We are just reading through the book and we are going to see what it says. And today it is going to lead us down the destruction of the cohesion of the kingdom, right? Uh, it has already fallen apart. It is in two pieces. You again have Israel and Judah, as has been historically the case, like the whole time, I guess. But at best, remember, they were a theocratic republic. They were 12 independent tribes acting together as one cohesive unit, going by the name of Israel. Now they are Judah and Israel again. Jeroboam has created his own altar in Israel. Let's go ahead and pull up the map that I have up here for y'all. This is not my map. It's just random Google. Let me make sure y'all can see it. Yes, you can. Okay, so this map is basically the division. Here is Jerusalem. There's the mountains right here. There's a pass, and Jericho and Gilgal. Gilgal is actually north, in my estimation, from Jericho. Like, I went through all of that. Anyway, this is the basic division. So when we're talking about Israel, we're talking about all the tribes in the north. And when we're talking about Judah, we're talking about basically Judah and I guess the remnants of Benjamin. So Judah is a large tribe. Judah is a very warlike tribe. They are very much a conquering tribe. They are lions. And so, let's get back into the text. Jeroboam has built for himself an altar up there. Suddenly, as Jeroboam was standing beside the altar to burn incense, there came a man of God from Judah to Bethel by the word of the Lord. And he cried out against the altar by the word of the Lord. O altar, this is what the Lord says. A son named Josiah will be born to the house of David, and upon you he will sacrifice the priests of the high places who burn incense upon you, and human bones will be burned upon you. And then the man of God gave a sign, saying, The Lord has spoken this sign. Surely the altar will be split apart, and the ashes upon it will be poured out. Now when King Jeroboam, who was at the altar in Bethel, heard the word that the man of God had cried out against it, he stretched out his hand and said, Seize him! But the hand he stretched out towards him withered, so he could not pull it back. And the altar was split apart, and the ashes poured out, according to the sign that the man of God had given by the word of the Lord. So there were ashes in the altar. That's what I'm trying to work out. There's ashes inside the altar. And then the king responds to the man of God. Intercede, I guess, like it's like a burn pit, right? You place your altar upon the burn pit. That would make sense. And then the king responded to the man of God, Intercede with the Lord your God, and pray that my hand may be restored. So the man of God interceded with the Lord, and the king's hand was restored to him as it was before. And then the king said to the man of God, Come home with me, and refresh yourself, and I will give you a reward. But the man of God replied, If you were to give me half your possessions, I still would not go with you, nor would I eat bread or drink water in this place. For this is what I was commanded by the word of the Lord. You must not eat bread or drink water, or return by the way you came. And so the man of God went another way, and did not return by the way he had come to Bethel. Now, a certain old prophet was living in Bethel, and his sons came and told him all the deeds that the man of God had done that day in Bethel. They also told their fathers the words that the man had spoken to the king. Which way did he go? Their father asked, and his son showed him the way taken by the man of God, who had come from Judah. And so the prophet said to his son, Saddle the donkey for me. And then they saddled the donkey for him, and he mounted it, and he went after the man of God. He found him sitting under an oak tree, and asked, Are you the man of God who came from Judah? I am, he replied. And so the prophet said to the man of God, come home and eat some bread. But the man replied, I cannot return with you, or eat bread, or drink water with you in this place. For I have been told by the word of the Lord, you must not eat bread, or drink water there, or return by the way you came. And then the prophet replied, I too am a prophet like you. And the angel spoke to me by the word of the Lord, saying, bring him back with you to your house, so that he may eat bread and drink water. The old prophet was lying to him, but the man of God went back with him, ate bread in his house, and drank water. You mean the prophet lied in the name of God? And while they were sitting at the table, the word of the Lord came to the prophet who had brought him back. And the prophet cried out to the man of God who had come from Judah, this is what the Lord says. Because you have defied the word of the Lord, and have not kept the commandment that the Lord your God gave you, but went back and ate bread and drank water in the place where he told you not to do so, your body shall never reach the tomb of your fathers. After the man of God had finished eating and drinking, the old prophet who had brought him back saddled the donkey for him. And as he went on his way, a lion met him on the road and killed him. And his body was left lying in the road, with the donkey and the lion standing beside it. And there were men passing by who saw the body lying in the road with the lion standing beside it. And they went and reported this in the city where the old prophet lived. Convenient. And when the prophet who had brought him back from his journey heard this, he said, it is the man of God who disobeyed the command of the Lord. Therefore the Lord has delivered him to the lion, and it has mauled and killed him, according to the word that the Lord had spoken to him. And then the old prophet instructed his son, saddle the donkey for me. So they saddled it, and he went out and found the body lying in the road, with the donkey and the lion standing beside it. The lion had not eaten the body or mauled the donkey. And so the old prophet lifted up the body of the man of God, laid it on the donkey, and brought it back to his own city to mourn for him and bury him. And then they laid the body in his own tomb, and they lamented over him. Oh, my brother. And after he had buried him, the prophet said to his sons, when I die, you must bury me in the tomb where the man of God is buried. Lay my bones beside his bones. For the message that he cried out by the word of the Lord against the altar in Bethel, and against all the shrines on the high places in the cities of Samaria, will surely come to pass. Even after these events, Jeroboam did not repent of his evil ways, but again he appointed priests for the high places from every class of people. He ordained anyone who desired to be a priest of the high places, and this was the sin of the house of Jeroboam that led to its extermination and destruction from the face of the earth. Okay, so sorry, what just happened? Like there was a lot, right? So Jeroboam is at the altar that he has created in the name of the Lord, right? That happened in the last chapter. And he gets this word, right? A man of God from Judah to Bethel. There came a man of God from Judah to Bethel, right, where he has built this altar by the word of the Lord. And he cried out against the altar by the word of the Lord. A son named Josiah will be born to the house of David, and upon you he will sacrifice the priest of the high places. So upon this altar that's about to be broken. And then that day the man of God gave a sign. The altar will be split apart and the ashes will be poured upon it. Now here's the part, right? You're Jeroboam and you're witnessing this. This guy comes up and he says this. And you stretch out your hand and you're like, taking. And then your hand doesn't work. And the altar falls apart. And then you're like, okay, my hand doesn't work. You pray for me and it works. There is no way I'm going to be the dude that's turning. Right? Like, how does he not turn from his ways and still go about doing the things that, like, that's like a literal thing, right? Like, right in front of you, these things happen. It's really convenient that this prophet dies, though. Like, why does this old prophet not get, like, not have a problem? Because he wasn't told by God to go do this. God uses it afterwards because he just interrupts this on his own volition. His sons come to him and says, there's this guy that just came and he called down this curse upon the altar. And then this prophet who is working in Israel, in the name of the Lord, says that he has received a prophecy. And this other man of God believes him because you're from the priesthood. You're not supposed to lie about these things. So he's like, okay, well, if God told you I can eat, I can eat. And so he follows him back. He has the same sin as Saul, trying to do the right thing. And then he is lied to, so he gets killed, conveniently, by the other side's man of God, who was okay with the altar. And they just happen to find him next to a mountain lion and a donkey. And the lion doesn't eat him. I will go so far as to say that the lion would attack, right? God could absolutely make the lion attack him and leave him alone. That's well within the scope of God. But why is the donkey not run off? Why is the donkey is not incapable of defending itself? Much more capable of defending itself than the human was. And just being by the lion is going to cause problems. It's not going to wait till these witnesses see it and report it, and then they come back, the sons come back and get the donkey. Like, it's just really overly complicated. And I think it's, again, just trying to make things right in the record. Ahijah's prophecy against Jeroboam. And at that time, Abijah, son of Jeroboam, became ill. And Jeroboam said to his wife, now, get up, disguise yourself so they will not recognize you as my wife, and go to Shiloh. For Ahijah, the prophet, is there, and it was he who spoke about my kingship over this people. Take with you 10 loaves of bread, some cakes, and a jar of honey, and go to him, and he will tell you what will become of the boy. And Jeroboam's wife did as instructed, and she arose and went to Shiloh and arrived at Ahijah's house. Now Ahijah could not see, for his eyes were dim because of his age. But the Lord had said to Ahijah, behold, the wife of Jeroboam is coming to ask you about her son, for he is ill. And you are to say such and such to her, because when she arrives, she will be disguised. So when Ahijah heard the sound of her feet entering the door, he said, come in, wife of Jeroboam. Why are you disguised? For I have been sent to you with bad news. Go tell Jeroboam that this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I raised you up from among the people and appointed you ruler over my people Israel. I tore the kingdom away from the house of David and gave it to you. But you were not like my servant David, who kept my commandments and followed me with all his heart, doing only what was right in my eyes. You have done more evil than all who came before you. You have proceeded to make for yourself other gods and molten images to provoke me, and you have flung me back behind your back. Because of all this, behold, I am bringing disaster on the house of Jeroboam. It is absolutely amazing how terribly God chooses. Absolutely amazing how terribly God chooses in his wisdom. Like, we watched all through Exodus as he was constantly surprised, and all through the various travails, how he is just overwhelmed and surprised and continuously picking the wrong people. I just find it amazing. I will cut off from Jeroboam every male, both slave and free, in Israel. I will burn up the house of Jeroboam as one burns up dung until it is gone. Anyone belonging to Jeroboam who dies in the city will be eaten by dogs, and anyone who dies in the field will be eaten by the birds of the air. That's an awesome way to treat your chosen. Like, you chose this man knowing full well that he was going to be terrible. So, once again, we're going to have God going to break his promise. Y'all remember the promise? Remember? The sins of the father will not be visited upon the son. Y'all remember that? I remember that. We read that together. That's why we read that together. Because so we can remember that. So that it is not the children who are punished for the sins of the father. That's not what happens. Is it? Is it what happens? What happened to Rehoboam? As for you, get up and go home. When your feet enter the city, the child will die. All Israel will mourn for him and bury him. For this is the only one belonging to Jeroboam who will receive a proper burial. Because only in him has the Lord, the God of Israel, found any good in the house of Jeroboam. Ruminate on that. The only one who is any good in the whole house of the man that God chose to take over the kingship of 10 of the 12 tribes. The only one is the infant who's about to die. And you can make your excuse about salvation coming later through the sacrifice of the child, because this again is another tie to that cycle. I don't. This is the sins of the father being visited upon the child by God. Not upon the man himself, but upon his children by God. After being promised by God that that wouldn't happen. That each man would be held accountable for his own sins. And moreover, the Lord will raise up for himself a king over Israel who will cut off the house of Jeroboam. This is the day, yes, even today. For the Lord will strike Israel as a reed is shaken in the water. He will uproot Israel from this good land that he gave their fathers. He will scatter them beyond the Euphrates, because they have made their Asherah poles, provoking the Lord to anger. So he will give Israel over on account of the sins Jeroboam has committed and has caused Israel to commit. And Jeroboam's wife got up and departed for Tirzah. And as soon as she stepped over the threshold of the house, the boy died. And they buried him, and all Israel mourned for him, according to the word that the Lord had spoken through his servant Ahijah the prophet. As for the rest of the acts of Jeroboam, how he waged war and how he reigned, they are indeed written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel. And the length of Jeroboam's reign was 22 years, and he rested with his fathers, and his son Nadab reigned in his place. Meanwhile, Rehoboam, son of Solomon, reigned in Judah, the southern tribe, and he was 41 years old when he became king. And he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, and the city the Lord had chosen from all the tribes of Israel in which to put his name. And his mother's name was Naamah, the Ammonite. And Judah did evil in the sight of the Lord, and by the sins they committed they provoked him to jealous anger more than all their fathers had done. They also built for themselves high places, sacred pillars, and Asherah poles on every high hill and under every green tree. There were even male shrine prostitutes in the land. They imitated all the abominations of the nations that the Lord had driven out before the Israelites. And in the 5th year of Rehoboam's reign, Shishak, king of Egypt, came up and attacked Jerusalem. He seized the treasures of the house of the Lord and of the royal palace. He took everything, including all the gold shields that Solomon had made. And then King Rehoboam made bronze shields in their place and committed them to the care of the captains of the guard on duty at the entrance of the royal palace. And whenever the king entered the house of the Lord, the guards would bear the shields, and later they would return them to the guard room. As for the rest of the acts of Rehoboam, along with all that he did, are they not written in the book of Chronicles of the kings of Judah? There was war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam throughout their days, and Rehoboam rested with his fathers and was buried with them in the city of David. And his mother's name was Naamah the Ammonite, and his son Abijam reigned in his place. And again, the lineage of Judaism is passed through the mother. The possessions are passed through the father. If your mama's not Jewish, you're not Jewish. You see? Capiche? This is a repeated pattern in this particular lineage. The one that is in charge. In the 18th year of the reign of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, Abijam became king of Judah. And he reigned in Jerusalem 3 years. His mother's name was Maacah, daughter of Abishalom. And Abijam walked in all the sins of his father before him and committed, and his heart was not as fully devoted to the Lord his God as the heart of David his forefather had been. And again, David was not. Nevertheless, for the sake of David, the Lord his God gave him a lamp in Jerusalem by raising up a son to succeed him and make Jerusalem strong. For David had done what was right in the eyes of the Lord, and not had turned aside from anything the Lord had commanded all the days of his life, except with the matter of Uriah the Hittite. And that is only true if you take out the commandments. Right? If you take out the law and you merely look at what God told him to do. Because when David was acting in God's will, he was conquering. He was doing battle. He was shedding blood. He was doing that. And when he was doing that, he was favored by God. Or this God, anyway. And when he wasn't walking in the steps. Now, Solomon was not engaged in direct bloodshed, but he was heavily engaged in arms traffic from Egypt over to the Syria-Lebanon area. And so he was profiting the same energy, the same thing, right? Imagine if every one of those chariots coming through were marked with a certain sigil that would dedicate any acts of violence done on that to a certain god. That would make a big difference in the energetic harvest coming from something of that nature. And Solomon was walking in the steps of a god. But these people who are not waging war or involved directly into the trade of war, they don't have the favor of God here. It appears that the favor of God is only through conquest. That is what the favor of God appears to mean so far. And walking in his ways appears to mean the same thing. Walking in conquest and violence and death. It is not in following the commandments. David didn't. Solomon didn't. And so, and Abijam rested with his fathers and was buried in the city of David, and his son Asa reigned in his place. In the 20th year of Jeroboam's reign over Israel, Asa became king of Judah. And he reigned in Jerusalem 41 years. And his grandmother's name was Maacah, daughter of Abishalom. And Asa did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, as his father David had done. He banished the male shrine prostitutes from the land, and removed all the idols that his fathers had made. He also removed his grandmother, Maacah, from her position as queen mother, because she had made a detestable Asherah pole. Asa chopped down the pole and burned it in the Kidron Valley. The high places were not removed. But Asa's heart was fully devoted to the Lord all his days, and he brought into the house of the Lord the silver and gold and other articles that he and his father had dedicated. Now there was war between Asa and Baasha, king of Israel, throughout their days. Baasha, king of Israel, went to war against Judah and fortified Ramah to prevent anyone from leaving or entering the territory of Asa, king of Judah. So Asa withdrew all of the silver and gold that remained in the treasuries of the house of the Lord and the royal palace. He entrusted it to his servants and sent them with this message to Ben-Hadad, son of Tabrimon, the son of Hezion, king of Aram, who was ruling in Damascus. Let there be a treaty between me and you, between my father and your father. See, I have sent you a gift of silver and gold. Now, go and break your treaty with Baasha, king of Israel, so that he will withdraw from me. And Ben-Hadad listened to King Asa and sent the commanders of his armies against the cities of Israel, conquering Ijon, Dan, Abel-Beth-Maachah, and the whole land of Naphtali, including the region of Chinnereth. When Baasha learned of this, he stopped fortifying Ramah and withdrew to Tirzah. Then King Asa summoned all the men of Judah with no exceptions, and they carried away the stones of Ramah and the timbers Baasha had used for building. And with these materials, King Asa built up Geba of Benjamin, as well as Mizpah. Now the rest of the acts of Asa, along with all of his might, all of his accomplishments, and all the cities he built, are they not written in the book of Chronicles of the Kings of Judah? In his old age, however, he became diseased in his feet. And Asa rested with his fathers and was buried with them in the city of his father David, and his son Jehoshaphat reigned in his place. In the second year of Asa's reign over Judah, Nadab, son of Jeroboam, became king of Israel. Israel's the top. And he reigned 2 years. And he did evil in the sight of the Lord, and walked in the way of his father and in his sin, which had caused Israel to commit. And then Baasha, son of Ahijah, of the house of Issachar, conspired against Nadab. And Baasha struck him down at Gibbethon of the Philistines, while Nadab and all of Israel were besieging the city. And in the 3rd year of Asa's reign over Judah, Baasha killed Nadab and reigned in his place. As soon as Baasha became king, he struck down the entire household of Jeroboam. He did not leave to Jeroboam anyone that breathed, but destroyed them all according to the word that the Lord God had spoken through his servant Ahijah the Shilonite, because of the sins Jeroboam had committed and had caused Israel to commit, because he had provoked the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger. As for the rest of the acts of Nadab, along with all of his accomplishments, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? And there was war between Asa and Baasha, king of Israel, throughout their days. And they let you know how Asa pleased the Lord. And in the 3rd year of Asa's reign over Judah, Baasha, king of Ahijah, became king over all Israel, and he reigned in Tirzah 24 years. And Baasha did evil in the sight of the Lord, and walked in the way of Jeroboam, and in his sin, which he had caused Israel to commit. And then the word of the Lord came to Jehu, son of Hananiah, against Baasha, saying, Even though I lifted you out of the dust and made you a ruler over my people Israel, you have walked in the ways of Jeroboam, and it caused my people of Israel to sin, and to provoke me to anger by their sins. So now I will consume Baasha and his house, and I will make your house like that of Jeroboam, son of Nebat. Anyone belonging to Baasha who dies in the city will be eaten by dogs, and anyone who dies in the field will be eaten by the birds of the air. As for the rest of the acts of Baasha, along with his accomplishments and might, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? And Baasha rested with his fathers and was buried in Tirzah, and his son Elah reigned in his place. Moreover, the word of the Lord came through the prophet Jehu, son of Hananiah, against Baasha and his house, because of all the evil he had done in the sight of the Lord, provoking him to anger, with the works of his hands and becoming like the house of Jeroboam, and also because Baasha had struck down the house of Jeroboam. In the 26th year of Asa's reign over Judah, Elah, son of Baasha, became king of Israel, and he reigned in Tirzah 2 years. However, while Elzah was in Tirzah getting drunk in the house of Arza, the steward of the household there, Elah's servant Zimri, the commander of half his chariots, conspired against him. And so, in the 27th year of Asa's reign over the Judah, Zimri went in, struck Elah down, and killed him, and Zimri reigned in his place, which is a repeating pattern reign. As soon as Zimri began to reign and was seated on the throne, he struck down the entire household of Baasha. He did not leave a single male, whether a kinsman or a friend. And so Zimri destroyed the entire household of Baasha, according to the word that the Lord had spoken against Baasha through Jehu the prophet. This happened because of all the sins of Baasha and his son Elah committed, and it caused Israel to commit, provoking the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger with their worthless idols. As for the rest of the acts of Elah, along with his accomplishments, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? We will be getting to Chronicles, and we will deal with the things recorded in Chronicles and Chronicles. In the 27th year of Asa's reign over Judah, Zimri reigned in Tirzah for 7 days. Now, the troops were encamped against Gibbethon of the Philistines, and the people in the camp heard that Zimri had not only conspired, but had also struck down the king. So there in the camp that very day, all Israel proclaimed Omri, the commander of the army, king over Israel. And then Omri and all the Israelites marched up from Gibbethon and besieged Tirzah. And when Zimri saw that the city was captured, he entered the citadel of the royal palace and burned it down upon himself. So he died because of the sins he had committed, doing evil in the sight of the Lord, and following the example of Jeroboam and the sin he had committed and had caused Israel to commit. As for the rest of the acts of Zimri and the treason he committed, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? Omri reigns in Israel. At that time, the people of Israel were divided. Half the people supported Tibni, son of Ginath, as king, and half supported Omri. But the followers of Omri proved stronger than those of Tibni, son of Ginath. So Tibni died, and Omri became king. And in the 31st year of Asa's reign over Judah, Omri became king of Israel, and he reigned 12 years, 6 of them in Tirzah. He bought the hill of Samaria from Shemer for 2 talents of silver, and built a city there, calling it Samaria, after the name of Shemer, who had owned the hill. But Omri did evil in the sight of the Lord, and acted more wickedly than all who were before him. For he walked in all the ways of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, and in his sins, which he caused Israel to commit, provoking the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger with their worthless idols. As for the rest of the acts of Omri, along with the accomplishments and the might he exercised, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? And Omri rested with his fathers and was buried in Samaria, and his son Ahab reigned in his place. In the 38th year of Asa's reign over Judah, Ahab, son of Omri, became king of Israel, and he reigned in Samaria 22 years. However, Ahab, son of Omri, did evil in the sight of the Lord, more than all who were before him. And as if it were not enough for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, he even married Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians. And he then proceeded to serve and worship Baal. First, Ahab set up an altar for Baal in the temple of Baal that he had built in Samaria. And then he set up an Asherah pole. Thus Ahab did more to provoke the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger than all the kings before him. In Ahab's days, Hiel the Bethelite rebuilt Jericho. At the cost of Abiram, his firstborn, he laid its foundation. And at the cost of Segub, his youngest, he set up its gates, according to the word that the Lord had spoken through Yeshua, son of Nun. And that is where we're going to wrap up today. We will be getting into some, like we touched on a bit of prophecy, even though we didn't expound upon it today. We will probably revisit that when the prophecies are actually there and talk about them then. We will be getting into Elijah and more into the prophet side of things. Because remember, before this, it was more priests, and we are now transferring into a new thing, right? This is really where the whole paradigm for everything kind of shifts. It went from the singular man of God to the priesthood of God to the direct representative in the judges of God to the kingship of God over all of Israel eventually, and now we are back to divided kingdoms. Now, they didn't divide into 12 independent tribes, which they were prior to David. Instead, they broke into two factions of north and south, basically. Israel, who holds to none of the commandments, right? And then we have one guy who seems to, but the way that he seems to be that he is violent. And that appears to be the thing that God most desires. That appears to be the way that you are faithful, is by being the conquering horde. When David did it, he was beloved, despite the fact that he did not follow the commandments. We're not going to rehash that. But the same thing with Solomon. Solomon did it a different way, but he was bathing in blood too. All the gold and silver that came to Solomon was coming by way of war, by demanding tribute because he was so wealthy. Like, people voluntarily gave him tons of gold. It's no wonder Egypt came and took it back. As soon as they saw weakness, as soon as the tribes departed, right? Once they divided and they were like, no, we're going to take care of Israel, you take care of Judah. Well, then they came and looted Judah. They came and took back their gifts. It makes sense. Now, it's interesting to note the bloodlines that Egypt, King Shishak, not the Pharaoh. Transition of power. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a somewhat difficult topic. This is just a rapid decline. We will be dealing with most of this again in Chronicles. I didn't feel the need to drag it out too long. We got through a lot of material today, and we got a lot of different subject matter coming up. So, to the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt State. Peace.